Hello and welcome everybody. We are about to start our session very soon. I might just give a few people a couple of seconds to join us and we'll get started in 1 second. Fantastic. Okay, so welcome to this wonderful session, Engagement versus Entertainment, Tackling Self-Isolation. So my name is Jessica Keneally and I'm Director of Dance for Wellbeing and Dance for Parkinsons Australia teaching artist. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of all the lands that we are joining from. I'm joining from a Wellbeing land, which is North Coast, New South Wales. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging and acknowledge Indigenous and First Nations participants joining us today. I would like to introduce Maury Voicey Barlin. Maury is an engagement specialist working with elders living with Parkinson's and dementia in residential aged care. He collaborates with the multidisciplinary care teams to deliver creative engagement in the Hunter region in New South Wales. And Maury is a proud member, as am I, of the Outside In Collective, a group of creatives dedicated to using the arts to engage and uplift older people. Welcome, Maury. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And just a conflict of interest here, Jessica and I are proud members and work together not only in the Outside In Collective, but also in the Hunter region. And I'm also on a Wellbeing land. I am greatly humbled to be asked and invited to come to talk to everyone and share my experience working in residential aged care. I just wanted to point out that I work in residential, that's my focus, and my focus is largely around one-on-one engagement. So I'm hoping that I can bring some, I guess, some value and just some thought to the areas that you're all working in. I know that we're all trying to do the same thing, and that is to find the person, to bring some joy and use therapeutic tools in a way where we can explore not only good social outcomes, but also healthy outcomes for each individual. So primarily I'm looking at elders who are self-isolating or living with depression. I'm looking at working with people with behavioural expressions that indicate they are distressed. And I'm trying to discover their personhood and their individual self. So in doing this, I'm trying to offer normalised social opportunities for my elders on equal terms where they can participate with me and sometimes hopefully lead where I follow. And often people are missing out for whatever reason that is. And that's not often lack of care by service, but we know there are a lot of barriers in residential aged care and in the care community and for individuals living in the community, but also in this time. I guess that I'm working with people and I'm not focused solely on the pathology or the certain type of disease. So primarily I talk about dementia, and I had for a long time put Parkinson's under that umbrella of dementia. And I realise now that that is not something that I should do. So please bear with me if I do use the term dementia. I will try and must learn to encompass both terms. So I wanted to take you through what I plan to do today, and the structure. What I'm looking at is igniting the spark. So we're going to have a look at bring an elder into the room as we speak, and looking at music to activate. I want to talk a little bit about the approach that I follow, which is largely based on the experiential model, very much influenced by the Eden Alternative, Jane Verity and Tom Kitwood. I want to look at unlocking the person, what makes you tick, and talk about a friend of mine called Richie Tubb. I'm looking at creating relationship, preferred interaction style, banter and mutual mischief, the paradox of choice, and making an offer. And of course, then we'll look at managing resistance and collaborating with staff, if I can come in. So I might just share my screen right now and share with you some stories I hope you'll find interesting. So if I can get my little, here we go. Not as seamless as I'd hoped. All right. This is a quote that sings to me. To touch the soul of another human being is to walk on holy ground. For me, this is everything that I think we're trying to achieve. I also wanted to read this quote, and I'm just moving. Oh, there we go. All progress in the human condition relies upon our ability to recognize and understand the difference between the way things are and the way things ought to be. And once we see that difference, we are given an opportunity to use our skills, our talents, to pursue excellence in closing that gap. For me, this is what we have signed up for, bringing the creative arts to our elders. And this is very much, I think, speaks to me about what I feel that I'm wanting to do with the time that remains on this planet. And this is a great man. And I get annoyed with these quotes because why didn't I come up with this quote? And so you'll see I use a lot of quotes because I'm not a genius enough to come up with them myself. So I want to meet Laurel. So let me tell you a little bit about Laurel. Laurel sits inert most of the time. Laurel sits forward and sort of in her own thoughts quite often. Largely, she does not participate, but will participate if invited and brought into the situation, but can be a little bit responsive in a negative way when asked or trying to handle her cares. Laurel also, her word finding is very limited and certainly is not able to use phrases. But Laurel used to play music. She used to play the piano accordion, and her son Paul comes in and films us working and playing together to show the kids that Laurel is still there. So I would really like to just share with you this clip of Laurel, if I have the clip right. Would you just tell me what we're seeing? If you are
I'm Oz. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, just wondering if we're seeing.
Yeah, we've got
at all on the screen.
We've just got your PowerPoint at the moment.
You know,
there
I
you
just
go.
Realized.
She's up there now. Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Oh. Here we go. Whew. So we can see. Okay, Jessica, just checking. I've still got my sound. Sorry about that difficulty.
No problem, Oz. Carry on.
We can see Laurel activated by music there, and this is Laurel today. This is where she is. This was just a few months ago, And Laurel is really activated and becomes quite playful with music. It seems to connect her. And once I'm 2 or 3 songs in, then when she's activated, I start to play and throw her opportunities for banter and mischief. And she now has a hat. I bought her a hat for a birthday, and we put she puts the hat on willingly and is quite excited. And there's anticipation about the session when I show up. And I think largely this is because I choose an outfit that sort of denotes a very bad vaudeville entertainer. It kind of is a cue of what may come. And although I'm not solely working with music, it does sort of give a recognition to a type of character that that is about to come and do something fun. A saying that I love is, when an elder dies, a library burns down. And I think that I see my job really is to try and keep the libraries open for as long as I can. So I do creative therapeutic engagement. So yeah, what is it? That's a great question. So basically, it's a therapeutic intervention based on playful engagement. It's not entertainment, and it is designed as a one-on-one intervention. It reinforces positive memories and connections in a playful manner and aims to tap into individual interests and humour. And I'm very much looking at encouraging socialisation. So a session might consist of music or song, humour, playful banter, vaudeville comedy, reminiscence, storytelling, poetry, puppetry, nonsense, cheek, respect, seeking advice and validation, whatever it takes to foster a relationship. So the criteria, I'm looking at working with people that are experiencing depression, heading towards loneliness. People that are self-isolating are pretty much my main focus. Experiencing anxiety, living with Parkinson's, dementia or stroke at any stage, and presenting with distressed or reactive behaviours. And I've written there, no challenging BPSD, and I've left that there as a reminder because we don't use the term challenging anymore, thank goodness, because that's kind of a staff-focused term. It's challenging to who? And so the terms are really important, and thus me needing to really bring in Parkinson's into my language. BPSD is another term, and some of you may have noticed that there's a real push to stop the use of behavioural and psychological symptoms of dementia because it's a confusing term. And so Dr. Alan Power tells a great story about a shower. So Jessica, if you were caring for me and you were to take me to the shower and I got into the shower and it was too hot, then obviously I would lean across and turn the hot down or the cold up, or I would say to you, it's too hot. If we can no longer communicate, or if we can no longer understand, to put things together to understand that the tap will make the water less hot, and then I just tell Jessica, then I'm liable to call out, to yell, to strike out, to lash out, to run away. So the behaviours are not associated with dementia at all. It's a communication barrier. And so Alan Power is someone that I really greatly admire, as you'll see as we progress through in the talk. And so Kate Swaffer also is an international figure, an advocate who lives with dementia, and certainly wants to see that term not used. So I guess the terminology is important because we don't want people to just say, oh, look, it's just it's a behavioural and psychological symptom of dementia. Perhaps, and more often than not, I think we see that it is a communication issue. This is Lee, a great friend of mine. I'm currently working with and have worked for a while. He loves pearly shells, and that's him belting it out. He does a call and response, and he sings it out to me and sings out the words before I hit them, and then I repeat. This is how we begin, and then we get to the nuts and bolts, and we talk about how he's traveling and where his thoughts are, and I show him photos of my family. So music is often used to start, but music is not everything that I do. And so I'm using a lot of different tools. So influences, as I said, Tom Kitwood, the Eden Alternative, Dr. Bill Thomas, who has that quote up front, Dr. Alan Power, and of course, Jane Verity with The Spark of Life. And the influence for me is the biomedical model, where we look at the pathology, and I'm working, and I think we're all working in the experiential model. Now, I guess I shouldn't say that to researchers, because I guess researchers are very much looking at both. So what's the approach? So the biomedical model we have, and we have the experiential model. The biomedical model looks at pathology. So it's looking at deficit and decline, and it needs to do that to work out how to manage, maybe what medications are appropriate, and, you know, what interventions are needed in the day-to-day care. Whereas the experiential model asks, what is it like to experience cognitive or physical decline? And these really do need to work in tandem. So the experiential model definition of Parkinson's or dementia is a shift in the way a person experiences the world. So Parkinson's and dementia, as we know, change the capacity to experience and enjoy life as we once did. So the Eden Alternative met some years ago and developed what they call the 7 domains of well-being. And this informs my work. And when I'm mentoring or training, this is where I head. This is the first port of call. So this is not what people living in aged care or our elders need. This is for all of us. This is what we all need to have a life well lived. So this is staff, this is leaders and managers, organizational leaders. This is us, creatives. And of course, it is our elders at the center of what we do. So those 7 domains, and this is freely available on the Eden website. We're looking at identity, we're looking at growth, autonomy, security, connectedness, meaning, and joy. And so I've got an example, but I just want to, for a moment, stop, because growth, when I first heard of this, I thought, growth, what? How does that work for people at end of life? Like, how does that figure? And of course, it's pointed out to me that, well, if we don't experience growth, then we do die, or we are dying, and we don't experience any development or enrichment, anything expanding or evolving. And so, you know, there is then of course no joy, but also we need to have a sense of growth so that we can participate in our world, and so that we have something to offer. Because I think very often people are sort of heading towards aged care, and they become what the sector calls them consumers, meaning they consume care. And once we start to consume, we no longer participate, and it's no longer two-way. So I think growth is a really significant part of what I'm trying to develop within my elder, and try to create situations where that can be expressed. So let's look at one of them where that might be. But Jane Verity speaks of the unmet emotional needs, 5 core emotional needs for us, and I love these. So Alan Power says, yeah, use the domains of well-being, or use Jane Verity's emotional needs, whatever, just use one of them. And I think it's terrific to be needed and useful, to have opportunity to care, to love and be loved, to love and be loved. So not just to receive love, but to give love, to have self-esteem boosted, and to have the power to choose. And, you know, again, just focusing on that, to be needed and useful, this is really crucial in my experience. When people are living, well, I'm working in residential aged care, they often don't feel useful. They sit back and most things are done with them or for them, but they're not initiated by them. And we need to have the opportunity to care. So I try and foster these in everything I do with my children, my family, photos, stories, and yarns, and of course to love and be loved. So to give that love. So this is not about giving. Oh, sorry, this is about giving, I should say, not receiving. And without these, we are just consumers. So authentic, meaningful engagement comes from a curiosity about others. You know, what is it that makes you tick? What is it? And I think it's from the curiosity that a person has, the curiosity that we exhibit in this work, then from that flows an authenticity. And I think that we could probably agree that as people, the cognitive decline begins, as communication decline sets in, as people are no longer able to interact in the same way, or to interpret interactions or to communicate, when people sense authenticity, they gravitate towards you and there is trust. And what Jane Verity talks about is the gates to the secret garden open and they allow you in. This is the gate that I'm trying to enter. So, you know, we talk about the qualities that we need for this work, empathy, of course, but I think curiosity for me is really important, leads to authenticity and that bloody thing called time. No one has enough time. And if we think about the elders living in the world now, how fast must the world seem to them? They are surrounded by people spinning and moving so quickly, and they come from a time which was very different. And so I try to create a sense of time. And asking questions is a big thing. Yeah, I talk a lot, I know, but I do ask a lot of questions and I do sometimes listen. And then it's what you do with that answer. So I'd like to give an example, and this was a profound experience for me. And the birds are outside tweeting. I hope they're not making too much noise. They're going off out there. My mate, Reggie Tubb. This is what someone once called following the breadcrumbs. History and curiosity reveals. As an actor, I'm really obsessed with history about people and trying to create and unlock the character and what motivates and drives people. So I asked my partner when I went into the service, I said, tell me about Reggie Tubb. And they said, oh, he's aggressive. He's non-compliant. And oh yeah, he'll hit you if you get close enough. Okay, I thought so. All right, I need a little bit more than that. And this was by someone that was very caring and I later discovered quite heart-led. But this is what they'd said about him because there was a bit of fear around my mate Reggie Tubb. So I said, let's go and look at his file. And there were 3 things written down, just 3. He was from Junee, so I knew the town of Junee. It's a very small town. I had a tea towel from Junee, not on me, but I had one, which I took in later. Now, there was in inverted commas or parentheses, someone had written, he got on the Wallaby track or something. And I just happened to know that that meant the itinerant workers. They got on the Wallaby track, walking the track from property to property, looking for work. And he had been a butcher. So a butcher was very significant, and this was the beginning of unlocking this. So I knew also that butchers often would, in his day, would go on the Wallaby track looking for work. And so I decided that with a bit of knowledge I had about butchers, I thought, okay, so Reggie Tubb Clat, that says, if you look at that backwards, it says butcher talk, and it says it backwards. So I'm just going to come back to screen here. So Reggie Tubb was sitting there, and butchers have a way of putting, they used to put words backwards to talk about the meat in front of customers, and butchers would just have this backwards speak so that they communicate without anyone knowing. And I knew this, and it was something in the 50s and 60s that butchers did. And of course, butchers in the 70s, I remember going to the butcher shop and thinking they're really flirting with my mum. And they would talk funny. And I discovered that, you know, when they talk about, they would say on doog means no good. So they would talk also about the pretty women that were coming into the store. So I didn't know this at the time, but I soon found out, and certainly don't let any butchers get away with it now. So I wrote a whole bunch of things backwards, and I said to my partner, please, 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 let it sit with us. We're going to sit in some awkwardness here. It's going to be really silent. So I wrote a whole bunch of things backwards. You know, how are you, Reggie Tubb? Hey, Reggie Tubb, what's happening? I wrote a couple of sentences and sort of looked at what I could say, and I held it, and I walked in, and there was Reggie Tubb sitting there. And I cannot describe, the look on his face was so grey and stone cold. And there was this look on his face of being completely lost in some hard world. And I was quite taken by him, and he was sitting down in his wheelchair. Now, he couldn't walk, so he's not ambulant, but he had upper body strength. And this is what they were saying about him hitting. So I knew I had to stay about a fist length away from him. So I held my bits of paper up and I said, hey, I said it backwards, of course. Hey, Reggie Tubb. And I left it. And I said, hey, Reggie Tubb, how are you? And I left it, and I left it. And I said a number of things. And then finally I said, hey, Reggie Tubb, how are you? You going okay? I let that sit. And I could see the wheels turning by now. And as they were turning, I saw something happening. And that's when I said, hey, Reggie Tub, are you there? And I said that forwards, and he looked up at me and he said, yeah, all right, how's you? And it was like this breathless moment where he spoke, and my partner sort of held my arm, squeezing it, and she swore and said, he spoke. And I moved forward to him slowly, getting down low as I do. And I said, they tell me you're from Junee. Yes, he said, have you been there? And I said, yes, I certainly have. I know the courthouse well. He says, oh, yeah, I know that courthouse. And we began to speak. And as we were speaking, I held my ukulele up, and he looked at the ukulele. And once he started looking at the ukulele, I said, hey, Reggie Tub, I got a song for you. And the only two songs I knew that were sort of on the Wallaby track songs were Road to Gundagai and Click Go the Shears. And I offered them to him. I said, what would you like? And he said, oh, Click Go the Shears, thanks. There's a track winding back to an old-fashioned shack. And as I started to play, Reggie Tub started to tap the side of his chair, and his little head bounced a little bit, and he smiled at the end of it. And I knelt and said a few things to him, and he talked to me, and I got closer and closer, and then I put my hand out and he shook it. And I said, I'll see you again, and I'll bring that tea towel. Oh, yeah. And that was the beginning of a great friendship. And so I tell that story because for me, it really taught me a lot about understanding people and getting deep down and following those breadcrumbs and trying to unlock who this person is. And the thing was that whoever wrote in parentheses, got on the Wallaby track or something, gave a very vital clue, even though the butcher was the big thing. So for me, that was a formidable experience and taught me much about how this work could be and how much power there is in really connecting with the individual. This is Reggie Tub. This is him. That's a hat from my butcher who gave me. I told them the story of Reggie Tub, and we used to leave that Cape Grim hat in his drawer, and we'd put it on for most of the sessions. And for, 90% of the sessions, Reggie Tub would communicate, and he would commit to a song and a bit of a banter. But sometimes, if he wasn't having a good day, he would close in. And so I think if we look at the 7 domains of well-being and we go back, I think we've tapped pretty much most of those. And I think if we look at meaning and connectedness and we look at identity, we really hammer those hard. If we look at autonomy, I offered him choice and always did offer him, and asked him questions for him to answer. And that allowed him, I think there's growth in that, growing relationship. There's a growth in story, and there's a growth in just sharing his wisdom. And of course, there comes joy. And he felt safer, I guess. So the staff started to refer to him as Reggie Tub with my recommendation to the manager. And some sang Road to Gundagai. Not everyone does, because not everyone's comfortable doing that. But Reggie Tub was, according to everyone, a little bit easier to work with. So this is a great quote from a mate of mine who said, there's an ember within us which can be fanned into a flame. And again, I'm really annoyed that I didn't make that up. I've got so much to get through, so I'm going to move on. Preferred interaction style. So one of the things that's key to my work, and we're all different, but what I'm looking at is what I call mutual mischief. And I use banter to create this, and some cheeky, provocative naughtiness. And preferred interaction style obviously is the way that someone prefers to interact. So Laurel likes to have music and likes to listen first, and then gets activated. When she's comfortable, she's ready to move. Some people need validation and don't require any humor, or they don't want any silliness. They just want to have a moment, or they just want someone to sit with, or to look through photographs, either of their family or the ones that I offer of mine. However, we have people that love mischief, and this is what I'm trying to offer opportunities to do. This is my mate Baz. Now, Barry, and Jessica knows Barry well too. We both were delivering at Summit Care. This is Barry, and you can see there Barry's got a wanted poster. It says, wanted for crimes against acts against humour. This is a photo of me in my bowler hat. He's keeping me out and not letting me in. Now, this was made by the manager. Now, we have lots of fun with the manager. Barry complains that I'm not getting paid properly or says that I should get a pay rise. So I say, let's write to Robin, the manager. And so I construct a letter and he tells me what to write. And then I print the letter out. I send the letter to the lifestyle team. They print it out. They take it to Barry. He signs it, takes it up to Robin. And the manager, Robin, of course, knows it's trouble. And then she will respond to it and give Barry a letter or send us an email. So this is a really playful, mischievous interaction that we have, which involves many of the staff and the management. And of course, the family really love hearing his stories. He regales when he comes in. This is a photo. He wanted a photo of me, so he took these on my iPad, and he's got this up on his wall. He thought this was hilarious. It really appealed to his sense of play. I wanted to also talk briefly, if I could, about engagement techniques and strategies around the paradox of choice and self-isolation. So given that self-isolation is such a focus for me, if I was to wait for my lifestyle team member or my buddy to go in and say, would you like to see Maury today, or would you like to see the funny guy, or however they choose to introduce me, they're usually going to say no, because that's what people that self-isolate begin to do, is they begin to push people away and withdraw. The guards come up, they start to distrust people. And my psychologist buddy, Julie Bassick-Smith, does some great work in the elder space. She talks about people not knowing what's expected of them or not being able to converse and communicate comfortably. And so it's embarrassing. And so they choose to withdraw and to self-isolate. So we still have to offer choice. And this is really tricky. So I kind of went back to my acting world and to improvisation, which is where I come from. And I remembered that in improv, you always make an offer. You have to make an offer. So if you make an offer, people can refuse it. And so you're offering a choice. And I started to experiment with this some years ago. And this is a picture of one of my elders modeled for this just the other day. A friend, Norma, who had great pain and always said, no, Maury, I'm in too much pain. I can't see you. I'm sorry. No, I can't see you today. Oh, I couldn't possibly talk to him. And we weren't getting anywhere. Like, it was a number of weeks where Norma was just refusing to see me. And I thought, well, I know she's comfortable with me. I wonder if there's a way to get in. And so looking at her profile once again and knowing things about Norma, because I had been seeing her, she had a great fondness for what she called exotic textiles and jewelry from foreign countries. And so I began to go in with things like silk scarf. This one's from Laos. It's a beautiful silk scarf. I'd go in with a South American llama wool bag over my shoulder. I'd go in with a Thai hat or a Vietnamese blanket, and I would drape them around me, and I'd go in and say, hi, Norma, I heard you in a lot of pain. Yes, I'm sorry, Maury, I can't today. And I would stand there and I would validate how she felt or how I imagined she was feeling. And she would say, thank you. And then as she would look at me, she would look at the item. Once she looked at the item, I would hold it and hold up and say, oh, that's a shame. I was hoping you could tell me what this might be made out of, Norma. But look, I understand you need to be alone. And look, I'll try next week. And she would say, can I have a look at that? Or she'd put a hand out and grab it. And once she did that, that was an invitation for me to stay for as long as she was comfortable with. And so from this, I was able to get in to see her, and she had the ability to decline my visit. And the thing was that if I went in and she really didn't want to see me, then I would honour that and leave, so that I set that as a mechanism for trust for later visits, but also making sure that we offered choice. And so the aged care team, the staff, were happy for me to do this once they saw it in action. And so it's kind of interesting when we get people that refuse and continually refuse to join us. We have to find a way to try and invite them in, but we have to at the same time honour that choice. And so it's always a challenge. And this is just the way I try to get there. Another way of offering something when it feels intrusive, and I've had a number of examples, or when someone can't communicate and I haven't worked out how to communicate with them, I will use images. I have folders of photos, and I use pictures of my little grandson, who is a little chubber, and how could you not be drawn into that image? I will just hold this up when I go in, or I will show it. I will say, hey, what do you think of this little fella? Do you know who this is? Can I show you something? Or to my mate, who was a big South Sydney supporter, I said, what position do you reckon this little guy's going to play when he grows up? These pictures open doors, and it's an offer. It's something, you're showing something and you're removing the fear of what do I have to do, what's expected. It's an invitation to something. This picture is of me and my dad. I'm the little guy, Maury Jr. with Maury Sr. And this man is largely why I do the work I do. He taught me a lot about banter and connection and just being with people. He was a cheeky larrikin and he was very lovable. So I use this picture a lot, and this
to interrupt, Maury.
And sometimes I don't even need to speak. I just sit with people and let them look through pictures.
We've got a 5-minute heads up, Maury.
The other important thing in all of this, and is very, very difficult, is to free yourself from agenda. People with cognitive decline and, of course, communication barriers often are reading the emotion in the room. They're reading what's coming because they may not have capacity to read anything else. And so what they're looking for is that authenticity. And if you come in with an agenda, a really strong agenda, I've got to communicate, I've got to get in there, they will sense it, I believe. And so I think trying to and this is very difficult, but it's really about freeing yourself of that agenda and letting it unfold slowly. And of course, this is great in a one-on-one session. How it works in a group, well, I think it can, but that's probably for question time. I've got a few minutes now, so I'm going to really quickly talking about managing resistance and collaborating with staff. I think if we think about residential aged care, particularly, that's where I work, but all people that work in aged care and people that work in the NDIS sector and people that work in these worlds, it requires a huge heart. It requires a huge heart to do this work. And I know that there's been a lot of bad publicity, and we know there's people in this world that have questionable motives, but generally we're looking at people with huge hearts. And we have to understand also, this is where the words of Bill Thomas again, how much has been taken from us. Those of us that work in the field of long-term care, how much we've lost because of the consequences of being big-hearted people trapped inside a rigid, cold, difficult and institutional system. We've had much taken from us as well. This is an incredible talk that he gives at the Pioneer conference some years ago, and I will share this with Erica and Jess and the team later, and if you want to see it. But my point is that when we go into residential aged care or aged care services, or we try and work with people that are caring in their daily lives, there's a sense of program fatigue. You know, they've had so many programs, so many ways and methods thrown, and this, you could be just another one. And so it's important to remember that these people might seem really cold and harsh and not very interested in what you do and not really help participate. But I think we need to consider what it is that's going on for them. And I think for creative programs to have a lasting impact, artists and creatives should not expect to merely deliver creative aging programs, but must collaborate with the multidisciplinary care team. Because when you do that, they know what you're doing and they're starting to understand what it is you're trying to achieve. But it's also fun. So I try to work closely with care staff, the leadership team and families. I seek out allies and I work delicately with resistance to learn more about the barriers that they're putting up and why they might be coming up. And I use that as a consultation process and then share and model and educate how our programs, our creative programs, can improve the lives, not only our elders, but of staff and family as well. It takes a great deal of diplomacy. It takes a lot of patience. It takes confidence and it takes humility. And the big word I've left off there is that it takes curiosity. I think that I should finish with that. See, Mary, she really came alive when I took this Arnott's book into her. She loves Arnott's biscuits. I did know that, but I didn't realise how much. Thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Maury. I really
Maury.
appreciate the opportunity. Jessica, I guess there would be some questions after that.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much, Maury, for your presentation. I'll just start my video again. Wonderful. Thank you so much. How informative. And
oh, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Yeah, informative. And
what I might do is I might try and take that out. How's that?
That's okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can't hear you.
Can everyone else hear me?
That's clumsy.
Anyway, we might take some questions if that's okay.
Maury.
Tamara, I might hand over to you.
Okay. Is anyone?
Thanks, Jessica. We'll just give Maury a second and see if he can get the sound working.
Yeah, I can't see anything here that I can adjust or change. Let me see if I can open up the chat. Can you hear me, Jessica?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Let's open up the chat and see if somebody can help us out here. Maury, check your speaker settings. All right, let's try that. Whoa. Just as I thought I was being so professional, Jessica. Built-in microphone, built-in output, internal speakers, audio settings. Test mic, test speaker, audio. I don't have anything that I can see that allows me to do that.
We might.
Yeah, I think.
Would it help
just through
if I logged out quickly and came back in? Let me just try this again. Okay, can you try speaking again? No.
Yeah, can you hear anything, Maury?
Can you hear us now?
Hello.
Hello.
No, you're not muted on my end.
All right. We can look at the. There we go. On the chat, perhaps.
Test speaker. Hello. Hello. Test microphone. Auto. Test speaker. Audio. I'm so sorry. I'm not quite sure how we're going to get around this one.
Elliot or Norm might be able to help.
Try and look at the chat. Just answer. Okay, so we'll do it through chat. Yeah, all right. Oh, you'll ask me the questions. All right. I can't hear you. Okay.
Read them.
I'll read them. Yep. So I can see them. And it says that you'll ask the questions. I haven't got a question here yet. You want me to go back through? Okay, video please, Maury. Wow, this is so hard if we knew sign language. It's musical parents. I can't see any questions. Birds are great. Question, Maury, how long do you spend with each resident? Do you have time limit on the maximum amount of people at the facility that they allow? Margaret Roller, thank you for asking that. So to answer that question, it depends on the situation and the capacity for someone to stay with me. So I could be 15, 20 minutes. It also depends on what sort of scale of the day we have. So I will do what we call a PRN session, which is like a prescribed as needed. So I've got a list of people that I see regularly, and there might be someone that needs some social interaction or a wellbeing watch, as we call it. So they might be added, but I'm usually aiming to sort of try and 10 minutes minimum if I can do that. Oh, there's a small arrow next to the microphone button. I'll just try that again. No, okay, I can't work that. How long? Oh, I answered that one. Oh, that's come up a few times. Yeah, no, that's the same question. What surprises you most about working with people with dementia and Parkinson's? Wow, that's a great question. I think the thing that surprises me the most is when those gates that I talked about to that secret garden, as Jane Berry calls it, when they open and when an interaction begins and then the communication starts to flow. And it's surprising when people are activated how much more they will communicate than you're aware of. And that is really surprising. And it's surprising, like when Laurel touches me, she leant forward and touched me in that in that clip, that was another thing about shows of affection are another thing that I really didn't expect her to lean forward and do that. How long have I been doing this work? So I joined a company called Arts Health Institute in 2012, and this is where I learned about playful engagement. They used to call it humour therapy, which is not a term I use. I like the term therapy. And this is where I met Jessica through Arts Health Institute, and I learnt the craft of there. And this work came from the clown doctors. So we share the same DNA with the clown doctors in terms of finding joyful ways to interact and to find the awkward moments in life and try to bring some joy and some understanding, but also some meaning through any way. And if that can be humour, that's great. It's not always humour that it's done in. So I've been doing this since 2012. As an independent in the Hunter, I've been going since the end of 2017, operating on my own in this work. I'm being asked if we'd like to wrap. No, I don't want to, Jessica. Yeah, look, thank you so much, and I'm sorry we lost the sound. I'm really not sure what's happened there, but I'll pull that out. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful session, and the work you're doing is amazing. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Maury. What a wonderful presentation. We're very lucky to have you speak, and I hope everyone enjoyed that. If you have any further questions for Maury, perhaps put them in the chat and we can send them on if that interests you. And yes, you can also look at Maury's work on Facebook or LinkedIn under the Outside In Collective or under his name as well. Thank you all very much for joining us, and have a lovely afternoon. I hope there's lots of things ahead for us. So